Writer, it does help because so much of what writing is trying to give people a visual image as you write. And I think scripts that don't sell or have a hard time getting traction often don't have a visual element. You can't see it. There's like, you do need a few like words in that action description. I think they give that sort of fire a visual cue in whoever's reading it. And an actor obviously does that. You can really picture, I say Will Ferrell, everyone pictures Will Ferrell in his tidy whities or whatever. If I just say a funny guy, immediately you're kind of like, it's just a more ambiguous scene.
And so if you're able to write the script where somebody could read it and say, oh, this just sounds like Jeffrey Rush, like that's going to be a huge boon to the script and get people really attracted to the project, and then you land Jeffrey Rush. I think as far as you asked about actually like saying the lines out loud, I have never, John and I have been working together for 12 years and I've never done that. But this past summer we had a movie shooting and we happened to be on set a lot, and I realized how bad some of the dialogue was, that the actors just couldn't get their mouths around the words, and it was really embarrassing to sit there and they just can't, like, you have like wound around, and it reads fine, you're like, I can read that, but they can't say it, and they look at you like, have you ever said these words? And I'm like, so I've actually started saying them a little bit more so I don't have those embarrassing moments.
Yes. I had that experience on the first day of shooting an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, and
that's different though, right?
Learned that
monosyllabic.
Oh my God! You know, I had saddled him with 2 consonants back to back. I took Clara up, and this guy, our governor, is a hard worker. And he worked on took Clara for hours. As I was walking by, you know, where he's smoking the cigars with his acting coach, and walking by in humiliation, because, you know, now it's too late to say, you know, I took the doll up to Clara, because it would be too obvious that, anyway. What I was kind of getting at with the question about acting and actability is, when you go, which I think is a great advice for writers to do, never done it, I've never taken my own advice, well, I've done it a little bit, go to acting class, and they always say, the actor needs to figure out their intention in the scene. What are they trying to do? What do they need? What do they think they want? And what do they actually need? Is that the kind of thing that you think about when you construct a scene?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah, very, very much. Because if you don't do it in the quiet of your study, you're going to have to do it on the set, and it's a lot easier to do it in your study than on the set. When you've got, you know, 52 people yelling and screaming and plugging in plugs, and wires are going up and lights are going up, and the actor is saying, but I don't know what I want in this scene. I don't know what my motivation is. Well, your motivation is the director says action, you know, but that doesn't go down well. So yes, it is something that I think about continually. I did a bit of acting years ago as a kid. I mean, really bad, but enough to give me the experience of understanding what the actor's needs are. And so I think about it a lot.
Yeah, I think knowing the intention for the individual characters in the scene is important, and it will help you obviously bring about the dialogue. But back to what we were saying earlier, just sort of knowing the intention of the scene. Like, why is that scene there? You know, you can do a whole outline and you can have a scene really fleshed out. But if you haven't answered why does this scene exist, what is the intention of the scene, then you can get lost in writing it also.
if you have outlined something and your outline is very specific as to what the character's motivations are and what, and then comes time to write the scene, the characters that you hear in your head aren't doing that. Have you had that experience? And what do? Do you go with the characters, or do you try and make them?
I usually put another character in the scene who can say it, which is a cheat, but more often than not, I definitely have that experience all the time where it's like you're trying to get someone to say something and it's just like, it just bumps so badly, even when you read it, you're like, oh, I can't get that to be done. I call it like the CSI, or like the Law and Order thing where like, it's so great about their shows is like they're in the middle of a scene and then some dude runs in and he's like, the murderer was Steve, and you're like, great, that's great, I don't even know who that guy was, that was really cool. That's so helpful for the story. He like works in the basement and I'm like, why don't we just do a show about that guy, because he always knows who the murderer is, like right away. But I feel like that's a pretty common device, is like to have, if you need that information out, and again, I think like a big part of it is what Scott was saying, is this is to us like that second draft. Like that's the stage where you have to have people saying crap like, you're only doing this because of your father. That's the draft where you have to answer, that's the answering. The first draft, I often feel, if you have that in the first draft, then the script needs work. You know, in some ways our first drafts, I always feel like are kind of the most, if we've really done our job, our first draft is tight and strong, and it's like just, every line has an intention, and then it starts getting fat. Once it gets into the system, it starts to get fatter and fatter with every round of development, and you do start to have these lines that sometimes your lead characters can't say, and sometimes no character can say, because it's so hard. And that's when we just put it in an action description. Like, his dad died 5 years ago, and you just hope that the executive's like, oh yeah, that's totally working now. That's motivation. But the dialogue, it gets hammier and harder to jam in. Personally, we deal with that a lot, because it's, again, you have to discern between what someone can say or what there's some lines that literally no person would ever say, even in a movie. And we get those a lot, and it's hard.
Get your hands off me, you damn dirty ape, or one of those. Yeah.
Yeah, Dan, going back to that, it's a consummation devoutly to be wished. I mean, to me, that's really when writing is magical and wonderful, when you simply become a stenographer and take dictation. These characters are just, they're riffing away, they're telling you, you hear it, and you know, this little acting troupe, this little ensemble is living in your head, and they're saying stuff, and they're saying, can you just get that down quickly? And that's wonderful. And I think you always trust those instincts and go with those instincts. They may need editing and refining and distilling later, but that's where all the good stuff comes from.
Yeah, and that's just knowing the characters, really knowing the characters.
I'm not sure why it clicks in. It's magical. It just clicks in. It's as though there's this force field, and you've managed to put a grappling hook on, and you've hooked onto it, and you're just being drawn along by the force field.
I totally agree. It does feel like, and I'm sure everyone who's ever written a script has had a moment like this, where there are those scenes or those moments. Like I feel like the Tatiana scene in the screen, like that was just a scene just like that took like 4 minutes to write. It's gonna get shot next week. It's like for whatever reason, just I got hit by the bolt and it worked. And it's almost, you don't want to ask questions about it, because I want that bolt to keep hitting me over and over again, and it doesn't. Like there's like days like today where you sit at the computer and you're like, what did Nikki think, right? Like you're just like anything but having to write. But the days when it hits you, it's just such a gift, and I have no idea where it comes from, but it's probably not totally healthy to hear voices like that. But when you pay your mortgage with those voices, you're really grateful when they come.
Yeah. I was saying earlier that we could that I was once willing to rename the Writers Guild Library for $2 million, the Zoloft Writers Guild of America Library. But you know, we need those little voices in our head that we can't do without.